Tonight on Joy News Prime, President Akufo-Addo insists though Ghana remains open, foreigners wishing to live and work here will have to respect domestic laws. The Foreign Ministry has meanwhile reduced visa on arrival fees to attract more returnees for the 2019 year of return. Parliament set to begin later this year construction of new multi-purpose complex with a chamber capable of seating 450 members.
Third Republic, the two pavilions, one is the Parliament, one is the banqueting hall. And what we're now doing is removing the parliamentary chamber to this new chamber and refurbishing the old Parliament to be another conference facility for Parliament.
The Speaker, however, says they are yet to finalize the costs of the project.
These are yet to be confirmed, so we are working on that.
And in business,
despite some criticism of government's handling of the economy, a former Nigerian central bank governor has commended the economic strategies adopted over the last few years.
GDP growth averaging over 6% recently. Nigeria is stuck at 2%.
An African Court on Human and People's Rights dismisses case filed by businessman Alfred Woyome claiming violation of his rights by the government of Ghana.
On merits, unanimously finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 2 of the Charter on the right to non-discrimination.
I'm Israel and Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio. Akukumlimli here in Accra with digital address GA09925539. Stay tuned in. Now, Parliament will, by the end of this year, begin the construction of a new chamber building capable of seating 450 members. Ghanaian British architect David Frank Ejay, who designed the new complex, says it will also host several other facilities, including a museum. He paid a courtesy call on the Speaker on Friday to show him the design.
We are hoping that the project will sometime this year start on site. As the Speaker said, Parliament the government has committed to it in the budgets that was revealed, so that has already happened, and they are seeking additional funding. But we know that we have been given the direction to prepare to start sometime this year to be able to allow this to go on site. And if we are able to start this year, it can be completed within the next 3 years. So at the moment, the way the master plan works is that you have the sort of buildings of the Third Republic, the two pavilions, one is the Parliament, one is the banqueting hall. And what we're now doing is removing the parliamentary chamber to this new chamber and refurbishing the old Parliament to be another conference facility for Parliament. With that, we're also putting all the car parks that you see that are on surface parking under the Parliament for security, so parliamentarians can drive into a secure zone and rise up directly into the chamber, but also to allow diplomatic visits that are coming to also be able to have their own secure port come in, the president to also be able to come in, and for all the support facilities, press galleries, libraries, museum to talk about the history of our parliament, our unique democracy, as well as support facilities are all going to be housed in this main block. It'll allow the Job 600 building to perform better and to allow this building to also be freed from some of the things that it does right now to be now performed in the parliamentary building. It is going to be like a stage underneath the building to allow for press meetings, but also presentations. And possibly what is being discussed is that finally the president will be sworn underneath the parliament, which is what parliament has wished for it to be. So it would be a staging place to be able to see this event happen directly under Parliament and then to rise into Parliament. And we will be able to gather in the gardens where the car parking is now, will be turned into gardens, which will be able to receive people on such occasions.
Now, Speaker of Parliament Professor Michael Quay says they are yet to determine the cost of the new facility.
I just want to find out the duration for the project to be completed and what is the cost implication.
These are yet to be confirmed, so we are working on that. we had a tender process by which we had 3 architectural firms competing for this job, 2 from Ghana, 1 from abroad, and overwhelmingly, not only us, but the institution of engineers, what do you call them? The institution of engineers were asked to make an analysis and bring a report which was one-sided, overwhelmingly in favor of those that have now been chosen. So we are making progress, and we are hoping everything will move well. We trust that sooner or later we will make another step forward. The president, in principle, has actually agreed to come and cut the sword the moment we are ready. So you can see that there's a lot of goodwill for this project. It's also very much in line, like you have said, sir. We don't just call you sir, you are sir, duly knighted by the Queen of England. We trust that at the appropriate time, we'll be able to marry all this into this new concept, you know, including Marine Drive extension and cathedral and the renovation of the entire, what I may call a centrifugal point in Ghana, you know. So it is a monumental project, and we appreciate what you have done to this point. We want to bring out a few things like capacity of the chamber, capacity of the gallery. Will we have a library in there? Not just by way of those who know already, but for the consumption of the public as a whole.
All right, and joining me in studio right now is our parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who will give us a fair idea what Parliament is now, what the structure looks like now, and what is going to change. Thank you very much, Joseph. So here right now, what we have on the screen is a Google Map view of the Parliament House, and this is the chamber at the moment.
Yep. And so this is going to be redesigned into what the architect describes as an additional conference building for Parliament. So it's staying intact, except that it won't continue serving as the Chamber of Parliament once the necessary redesign and reconstruction. All right,
so what is going to change over here as we have it?
So this, as you see here, is the Speaker's office. That is staying intact. The Job 600 building is behind that. That is again
the long stretch, as you can see.
Exactly. That is again staying intact. Now, this structure, which is the State's banquet hall, we are told that it won't anymore be used for a purpose where the public can come around and hold a public event and have their funerals and all. But right in front of that, this entire stretch, right in front of the State banquet hall, all the way to the space in front of the old Parliament block, as in all the way from there.
So
up until
essentially it covers the fountain, the 2 fountains in front of Parliament.
Exactly.
So this one and the other one. So the one in front of the banquet hall and the one in front of the parliamentary chamber.
It is stretching all the way there.
That's where the new chamber is.
Exactly the case. And it's not just a chamber. There will be a library in there. We are told there will be an eating place for members of Parliament, which is currently non-existent, right in the House and in the West of the Speaker, so that the MPs can eat and go back to work and all. They're going to have a mosque, and we understand a prayer area as well for those who are not Christians, all sitting in that particular space. And then
so there's going to be a mosque and a prayer area.
Yes, more like for the Christians. So something for the Christians and something for the Muslim and other religions, depending on your own religious faith.
All right.
And then the eating space, a smaller library, a place for the press area, as to a spot where when MPs would want to conduct interviews with journalists and all, they can go into in order to go get that sort of interview. And that would also be captured.
I'd like the my producer to tilt it so we can have a frontal view of the structure, and then we can it gives us better perspective, and then we can also see the existing offices of Parliament, Job 600, which is in the back. All right, so let's now So this whole place, as you've explained, the two fountains in front are going to go
Yes,
off.
all of that. And the explanation as per what we are told is that the structure itself will not be sitting on the floor. It will be sitting on pillars. And beneath the pillars would have what would be a car park where the MPs can park their car and quickly climb up into the chamber. There will be gardens within that space. And then, so that will be for the lower floor. And then the pillars will then hold the main structure itself a little above that. And the speaker explained that one of the intentions behind that, he explained that with the majority of the association and Sabuntu, is that they are not comfortable with having to, for example, swear in the President of the Republic at the Black Star Square. They think that is something that should be done in Parliament, so that on days when Parliament needs to have a huge event as that, then the beneath area, which will then be a car park that the chamber will be sitting on, the vehicles will be moved, and that space can be converted into an open area where such a ceremony can be held with MPs sitting and all the other members of public who come and watch, sitting around and having that investiture process happening right in Parliament House.
It looks like a grand design, and looks really beautiful if eventually it comes out. If we can get to see what it actually looks like, or the prototype. Okay, so this is the 3D imagery of what the structure is going to look like. So it looks all good and all. Then we're talking about cost. Apparently, the speaker is saying that they haven't really finalized the cost, but we know that there were 3 bids, and the architect David J actually won the bid. So how do you explain that?
So the indication we've been given is that he's done the design, but he would also be supervising the construction. So you heard him make the point in the sound that they hope to move to sites, sometime in the course of the year and all. The speaker explains that there is a provision in the budget for that. We've been double checking yet to really lay hold on that particular figure, but he says there is an allocation for the construction of the chamber in the 2018 budget. The money, he explains, is not enough, and so other funds are being sought in order to allow for this. Recently, he held a meeting with the Indians and was requesting that they provide some support, and he's been around having conversations around other institutions and international donors possibly contributing additional money. But the indication is that the government of Ghana allocation for the project, which they've not finalized the cost on, will not be enough for it. But and again, the speaker explained it himself, that they had bids from 3 different people in terms of them wanting to do the design and go ahead with the construction and all, and they selected Sir David J, although they've not finalized on the cost, which is what some MPs are on the low side, avoiding to come up to
so they won't publicly speak about it,
but they make the point.
They have issues.
They have issues that you don't go ahead and go through a tender process when even the cost of the project hasn't been determined, and for them it's actually doesn't make sense, especially when the indication is that it's not just the design of it, but the company which is now doing the design will oversee the construction as well. So then there are questions about on what basis was the tendering done, and what was the basis for the selection of Ajayi and Associates to do the project when even the cost hasn't been final.
All right. So for now, they're not willing to talk about it, but I believe that probably in the next few days, some of them would be brave enough or bold enough to come forward and talk about it. Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Kakpo, our parliamentary correspondent, bringing us up to speed with what this new parliament building is going to look like and how the new structure is going to sit at the existing Parliament House. Now, moving on, Ghana has reduced fees for visas requested on arrival in the country. Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Charles Oredu says this has been done to enable more people in the diaspora participate in activities lined up for the year of return. He made this known at a briefing for the Diplomatic Corps on Friday. Here's a report by Philip Ankra.
Year of Return Ghana 2019 is a year-long activity with over 40 diasporan events. The objective is that Ghanaians in the diaspora reconnect to their roots. It was outdoored by the Akufo-Addo government to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the arrival of the first slave ship from Africa on the shores of the United States of America. Speaking at the program, Mr. Oredu said this move by government will get more people to participate in the activities.
This ministry is working with the appropriate MDAs towards addressing the inconveniences in obtaining visa for traveling to Ghana to participate in the various events of the year of return. For instance, fees for visas on arrival had been reduced from $150 to $75. Ghana missions abroad are also relentlessly expediting action in granting visas to participants to travel to Ghana.
He further revealed that the government is taking steps to have visa agreements with countries with a high number of people in diaspora and also grant citizenship, dual citizenship and right of abode to these people.
The government of Ghana is also in the process of working to have visa agreements with some countries, such as those in the Caribbean, where the diaspora total number is quite significant. In response to the diaspora's request, the Ghana government is taking the necessary steps in granting citizenship, dual citizenship, and right of abode to the diaspora who would put in the request. This ministry is liaising with the Ministry of Interior in resolving all issues relating to citizenship, dual citizenship, and right of abode. In May this year, 66 foreigners who applied for Ghanaian citizenship were granted their request.
Director of Diaspora Affairs at the Office of the President, Akosiwa Abebio, said, after 400 years of slavery, there's the need for Africans to take every step possible to prevent such a thing from happening again.
The more we are able to recognize our own potential, the more we are able to feel confident. Which is that 400 years, the president said we don't want to go back again. It should never ever happen to Africa again. And of course, it's never going to happen again. But then we need to have that self-belief, self-confidence that we are going to do things the way we want it, the way it should be for us. And that's for me, is the defining thing.
The year of return 2019 will afford the Ghanaian community and African diaspora the opportunity to engage in socio-economic development. For Joy News, Philip Ankress reports.
In a related development, the Omanhene of the Asebu traditional area, Katachie Amemfi VII, is giving 5,000 acres of land in support of the Year of Return recently launched by the president. The land, according to the chief, is to make the returnees feel at home and set up businesses to develop the area. The Year of Return Ghana 2019 is a major landmark marketing campaign targeting the African American and diaspora market to mark 400 years of the first enslaved Africans arriving in Jamestown, Virginia. At the ceremony at Asebu, the seat of the Paramountcy, the Paramount Chief made an appeal to all traditional leaders in the central region to make lands available for investment opportunities that will set the region streets ahead of its fears. Richard Kojonyako has more.
Okitechia Memfi VII assures the returnees the central region is a safer investment destination for them, and the Year of Return serves as a fertile ground for them to come and contribute their quota to their motherland. He touts the potentials of the central region that make them stand tall.
And our people have been outside the continent for a very long time. This is the time to bring them back, and we cannot bring them back when they have nowhere to go. So that motivated me to give out this parcel of land for them to have a place so that they can stay, they can build, they can establish their industries and so on. And in so doing, we give them a place to stay. And then also for them also to help the economy of the country. If I have a vast resources for tourism, and tourism can increase the income of this country tenfold. So a central region being the center, the pivot for tourism, I think that if you work out well, if you plan well, if you organize ourselves well, we can use tourism alone to turn things.
Central Regional Minister Commenda can praise the chief and the paramountcy for their foresight and zeal to help the central region develop. He called on other traditional leaders to emulate their Asebu paramountcy.
For me, it's a very positive step. This somehow is heralding the processes which will lead us to the main thing, the emancipation, the manifest, and then the Year of Return. For him to be this magnanimous. Now, this day and era, you will not have it that free, that a paramount chief plus his chiefs will sit and want to weave into projecting the region and projecting Ghana. And one thing that has been always scarce is the land. And straight away, he has already given 5,000 acres, and yet to give more. And it can never be anything away from the magnanimity of the chief and of his elders.
President Akufo-Addo, who recently launched the Year of Return, assured Ghana will continue to ensure that its hard-won Pan-African reputation is not lost, and making Ghana the focus of activities to commemorate the landing of the first enslaved Africans in the English colonies in North America is therefore a huge opportunity to entrench Ghana's leadership. Richard Kwejinya-Akon, Joy News, Cape Coast.
And President Akufo-Addo has rejected assertions Ghana is becoming a xenophobic state. Recent clashes between Ghanaian and Nigerian traders over non-compliance with domestic laws on trade got many of them worried for their lives. Receiving the outgoing Cote d'Ivoire ambassador to Ghana, President Akufo-Addo said the country remains open to foreigners wishing to live and work here, but added they must, however, respect domestic laws regulating conduct of business in the country.
In recent times, some utterances in Ghana and actions which you have given the impression that somehow or other Ghana has now become a xenophobic state, that we have problems with our fellow Africans. That is the exact opposite of the truth. There's no xenophobia in Ghana. We're not a xenophobic state. We are the Pan-African nation that has opened its doors to all Africans. And they are not going to be the object of any hate campaign in Ghana. And Ghana continues to remain open, welcoming, especially to our brothers and sisters from all parts. What we do insist on, which is what every nation insists on, that our own domestic laws are respected by those who come to our country.
Watching Joy News Prime, we're taking a break, but still ahead in the bulletin. African Court on Human and People's Rights dismisses case filed by businessman Alfred Woyome claiming violation of his rights by the government of Ghana.
On merits, unanimously finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 2 of the Charter on the right to non-discrimination.
And in business, which comes up next, despite some criticism of government's handling of the economy, a former Nigerian central bank governor has commended the economic strategies adopted in the last few years.
GDP growth averaging over 6% recently. Nigeria is stuck at 2%.
Stay tuned in, we'll be back in a bit. The African Court on Human and People's Rights has dismissed a case filed by businessman Alfred Woyome, alleging that his rights have been violated by the government of Ghana. The businessman had dragged government to the Continental Court, alleging that he has been treated unfairly by Ghana's Supreme Court and government in the retrieval of 51.2 million cedis from him. The decision of the court was delivered on Friday as it turned down the businessman's request that he is paid compensation. There is more in the following report.
The businessman in the case filed at the Continental Court alleges a number of human rights violations. It includes claims that government did not respect the terms of an agreement that had him provide funds for the rehabilitation of stadia and not given a fair trial. In an interview with Joy News, he was confident the court would rule in his favor.
If I win and the Ghana government do that, then I can call it there is a coup d'etat of the constitution. That's what I'll call it. And I am boldly saying that. Because that is the fact of it.
The court in its decision says Mr. Woyome's rights have not been abused by Ghana.
On merits, unanimously finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 2 of the Charter on the right to non-discrimination, finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 3 of the Charter on equality before the law and equal protection of the law, finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 7, subparagraph 1A of the Charter on the right to have one's cause heard by a competent tribunal, and finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 7, subparagraph 1A of the Charter on the right to be tried by an impartial tribunal in respect to the composition of the review bench of the Supreme Court.
The court also turned down his request for compensation.
By a majority of 7 for and 2 against, Judges Gerard Nyungeko and Rafa Ben Asho, dissenting, finds that the respondent state has not violated Article 7, subparagraph 1D of the Charter in respect to the remarks made by Justice Dodson in his concurring opinion in the ordinary bench of the Supreme Court. On reparations, by a majority of 7 for and 2 against, Judges Gerard Nyungeko and Rafa Ben Asho, dissenting, rejects the reliefs sought by the applicant. On costs, unanimously decides that each party shall bear its own costs. The judgment has been signed by the judges mentioned at the beginning.
The decision means there is currently no legal impediment barring the state from its effort to retrieve the outstanding 47.2 million cedis.
Now, families of some modern Ghana journalists arrested on Thursday by national security operatives are demanding their immediate release. The 2 men were picked up on Thursday by some men describing themselves as national security operatives who raided the online portal's offices. The 2, Emmanuel Ajafo, an editor, and the reporter Emmanuel Brechum, were picked up after allegedly publishing a story about the National Security Minister Albert Kandapam and Member of Parliament Afenyo Marking. Laptops belonging to the news outlet were seized in the process. Their whereabouts remain unknown. Henry Kwesi visited the premises of Modern Ghana and has more in the following report.
The main office of the online news outlet was virtually empty with little activity. Work here halted with few workers of other subsidiaries hanging around. The 2 journalists, Emmanuel Azunugu Ajafo and Emmanuel Brechum, were picked up for allegedly indulging in cybercrime activities. Employees of Modern Ghana present at the time of the raid say they were scandalized. Lydia Amponsa was employed just a month ago.
We're in the office at about 3 o'clock p.m. or 3:15 thereabouts, where 3 men with 2 men armed came into the office. They picked up the laptop. They just walked in, picked up the laptop of my boss and 1 writer alongside with their mobile phones, and then they marched them out of the office into a black van, which is a presidential car, black van, and then they took off. They had this long guns, which I guess is AK-47, and they were well built, well built made, which I think there will be national security personnel,
So when they came into the office, what did they say? Did they say anything?
They didn't say anything. They just asked of the other guy's name and then my name, and then they picked up his laptop and they left me alone in the office. This is not a military ground, so for me to see guns, we've not committed any crime. We are not thieves. We've not stolen anything. So I don't expect to see such armed men in our working premises. I was shocked. I was surprised. I was surprised. I had a lot of questions running through my mind. What would we do? Is journalism a crime?
Families of the 2 journalists say all attempts to reach their relatives have proven futile. Fred is a brother to the reporter Emmanuel Brechum.
This morning I tried to call my brother, but he's going through, but he's not picking his call. So I called my brother to find out what is going on. They said they've been calling my brother, but he's not picking his call. So I just called 1 or 2 people, and they said, I read the news online, and they said national security has taken my brother, and I don't know where he is right now. I want them to release my brother because I don't know what crime he has done.
Chief Executive Officer of Modern Ghana, who denied the alleged cybercrime activities leveled against his organization, tells Joy News they are yet to make an official complaint to the police.
Since yesterday, I'm just in the dark like everyone because I've not heard from my crew. They took 2 people of them. And I don't know where they took them. First, I'm going to file a case because it's now almost 24 hours. We've not heard of anything. And all their mobile phone, they are all switched off. So you can't reach them, and we don't really know their whereabouts.
Management of Modern Ghana says they will not relent in their efforts to ensure their journalists are released. Henry Kwesi-Bedu's report for Joy News.
Residents of the Volta region have expressed concern about the bad nature of roads and completed state projects, lack of health facilities, and questioned when the Keta Harbour project will be completed. They have also been quizzing government officials about what they refer to as insecurities in their country at the maiden edition of government's town hall meeting in the region Friday.
The students seem to have asked the question on the minds of most of their colleagues. She lamented the broad scope of their syllabus and their inability to finish the syllabus.
The semester pace has come to worsen, and we, the students, are suffering from it. Because when we look at the university students, they practice the semester case. And whatever they learn at the end of every semester is what they write in their exams. But we, the secondary school students who are practicing this semester case as a result of the free SHS policy, when you get to the third year, now all the students here can testify that we are not done with our topics for the semester before writing our exam.
A resident of Keta asks about the poor state of the whole Dani Road and asks when the Keta Harbour project will be completed.
You know the president has the right to appoint and then transfer. If you are made a minister and you've left the region, you are transferred to another region. What are you going to be proud of that you've done for the people of this region, especially the southern sector, Keta? Is it the harbour or is it the road from road to Denu?
Issues were also raised about plans to develop sports in the region. The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha, responded to some of the questions.
2019 is supposed to be a year where we do a lot of infrastructural projects, and roads are not excluded. We have plans to make sure the almighty Eastern Corridor is started, and the Vice President of the Republic is taking this as a personal project to make sure it happens. We have also done surveys on the whole Edo Road, because that is a very important road. Because if we want to operationalize our new airport, that road will have to be fixed, because we are going to target a lot of traders who come from.
The Regent of Daintra, Chief of New Obuasi, Nana Eje Intre II, has called for a national action plan to deal with mob action in the country. According to him, the surest way to honor the memory of the late Major Maxwell Mahama and avoid a recurrence anywhere in the country is to deal with the menace of mob action. Speaking exclusively to Joy News 2 years after the death of Major Mahama, the chief outlined steps being taken by his traditional authority to lead the campaign.
What I'm more concerned about is the promoting of, how as a country or as a nation we can stop instant justice. I plead to Ghanaians to morally realize and respect people for who they are and not what they are. Well, my elders and I and the DC of this area and a few church leaders, we've been organizing seminars, promoting how we can stop mob action within the communities, and in the long term, thinking about how it can go, throughout our different various communities within the country to eliminate that behavior. So we've set up an NGO called Tema Africa, and the meaning of Tema Africa is to end mob action in Africa. And we are hoping that through this, what we are doing, it would help, people to, in the long term, stop taking people's life or taking the law into their own hands within Africa, starting from New Obuasi.
Well, the chief says the absence of a police station in the area 2 years after the tragic incident still threatens the security of the town and surrounding villages.
What my elders and I are doing is we really doing more to let people know that you know, you can take the law into your own hands. Looking at what late Captain Mahama was doing, he was a sportsman. He was just trying to do a 10K. So a month ago, on his 2 years anniversary, my elders and I and a few surrounding villages, you know, folks, we took to ourselves to start a walk in his memory. Started from where he started from and ended up in New York was. And it's almost a 10-mile journey. Well, we don't have a police station in here. And if there was a police station, I think it would have really helped. So as I speak, we're pleading to the government and you know, donors to help us get a police station in here. The people of the village and the surrounding areas are ready to help with communal labor. And police station coming in here will serve the surrounding areas, the villages all around these areas. Because I think with a police personnel being close to issues like that can actually really diffuse such tensions.
Parliament is considering whether to summon the Electoral Commission chairperson, Jean Mensah, to answer questions on a number of issues, with the limited voter registration exercise being one of their top concerns. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu wants her in the House so she could also brief MPs on plans for the district-level elections and referendum later this year. But Majority Leader Oseche Mensah is asking the Minority Leader to use the right procedure.
I may have to make an application for you for a directive, and a directive that at a business committee a fortnight ago and on the floor, I made a request that the chairperson of the Electoral Commission will necessarily have to brief this House as representatives of the people on some matters bordering on governance in the country, particularly the challenges with the ongoing voter registration exercise. In my constituency, there are shortages of forms and there is confusion between online and offline. The President has indicated through you and to the Council of State matters bordering on a referendum on Article 55 and other articles and the conduct of district assembly elections. Mr. Speaker, as representative of the people, the right to vote cannot be a right in denial. And therefore, if you can direct that the chairperson appears before this House, I've made a request to the committee, the chairman is here, we need the Electoral Commission, and this is not the first time. We are major stakeholders, that she must come and share with us roadmap, how she intends to work the governance initiatives of the President. I so apply, Mr. Speaker.
Beginning with what the Minority Leader has submitted. Indeed, he raised it at the Business Committee, and I strongly suggested to him that the Business Committee does not generate its own agenda, and that if he has issues, he should apply to the Speaker. If the Speaker agrees, and we have to do that, the Business Committee then will consider same. But until then, there's nothing before the Business Committee to invite, talking about fishing.
Speaker Professor Michael Kwehave wants the leaders to work together and decide the way forward.
Of my application on the EC chairperson, because the leader of government is saying that
application on what?
The Electoral Commission.
Put your heads together.
We have.
And take appropriate steps.
But we can unless he detach his head. We have.
Honorable, there is every sector in this republic. You can ask a question you can demand accountability. And there's always one minister or whatever the name may be. And we know we used to have a chief of staff to answer questions here before, and so on. So if you want to ask a question on something, there is no office, body or authority which is beyond parliamentary question. If there's any difficulty whatsoever, then let me know. But so long as that process is there, it should be applied. And of course, statements can also be made by honorable members. Pursuant to statements, we may set up a committee. Or we may give a direction accordingly. So honorable members, please apply our rules accordingly. And you can get what exactly you want. There's no estoppel in this matter. But let us go by the book. I thank you.
Now, Wesley Girls High School becomes the school with the highest point gained at the 1/8 stage of this year's National Science and Maths quiz. They beat Commenda SHS and Bremang Eskuma SHS by a whopping 55 points, which gets them to the quarterfinals of the competition, where they will face Prempeh College and Achimota School. The ladies say they will beat these schools and ultimately win the coveted trophy.
Senior high school has 24 points. Wesley Girls High School has 55.
So the first school to have recorded the highest mark in this 1/8 stage of the National Science and Math Quiz, Wesley Girls High School managed to win with 55 points, the highest we've seen so far in this particular raid. The students quite calm and collected. They would hardly say anything, but I just want to take a few words from the students if they are still on the stage. They aren't. I see them downstairs, so maybe you can go close to them and find out from them how exactly it was sitting up there, especially winning with the highest points so far. Hello. Hi ladies, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, you're even confused. How are you feeling? Let me just ask you how you're feeling at this point.
Oh yeah, excited.
Yeah. I remember your name. So there's Vera and then so there's Dion, right? They kept on mentioning your name because you got getting almost all the answers right. And you happen to be the school with the highest score in this 1/8 stage. How does that make you feel?
We are very excited and we hope it continues like that.
Were you expecting the score or you were expecting something even bigger?
Even bigger. Oh, we are going to take it like this.
You know, in your next contest, you're going to be meeting Prempeh College and Achimota School. What should we be expecting from Dion and Vera?
The very best. We will not fail you.
Just tell me briefly, how has the preparation gone for you throughout all these months? Tell me, explain to me how difficult it was.
Oh, because we had trials during our WASI period, so it kind of interfered with our WASI, but then because we knew we wanted to get past the quarterfinal stage, we had to persevere. So we are praying that the hard work pays off.
Is Wesley Girls going to be the first school to win the National Science and Math Quiz?
Yes, please. Why not?
You also believe it, don't you?
I believe it.
Can you give yourself a high five for me? Great, okay.
Arakum Singh now brings us the editorial on the Commenda Sugar Factory.
Today, we're going back to the sugar question, the Commenda question to be specific. Let me ask, what do you use sugar for? That is for those who have not cut it out of their diet. A few things come to mind: tea, cocoa, rice water, mashke, gari soakings, bread, cake. Sugar is essential for all of these. But the reality is that the sugar that you consume is not produced in Ghana. It is imported. In 2016, Ghanaians consumed 463,000 metric tons of sugar, and the figure is projected to hit 872,000 metric tons by 2030. Ghana spends over $200 million to import sugar every year. Establishing the Commenda Sugar Factory was government's plan to reduce sugar importation by at least 60%. But has that happened? You know it's a no. By now, you know the story of how the NDC government built the Commenda sugar factory but failed to plan adequately to ensure access to sugar cane to enable the factory run efficiently. The then opposition MPP jumped on a bandwagon of accusations, touting its ability to run the facility better. In fact, the least said about the political ping-pong regarding the Commenda sugar factory, the better. But we can hold politicians accountable on the basis of the assurances they give us. In August last year, President Akufo-Addo promised the people of Commenda that very soon government will roll out a plan for sugar production.
Any idle factory, the amount of land we need for the sugar, the type of sugar we can grow here, all those things were not properly organized. I think our organization, and also the between strategic investor, and also it to be about Robert Bisomu. Nanche, Obati Papa Freemanum, and
It's almost 1 year since the president made that promise, and the Commenda sugar factory that government borrowed $35 million to revive is still dormant. The sad reality is that it is rusting away. Just this year, in April, Trade Minister Alan Chermanting appeared before Parliament, promising that a decision will be reached on Commenda soon.
This has been going on for some time, and last week we had a short list of about 4 companies with, well, I would say, attractive proposals, and now we are in a position to recommend to Cabinet for a final selection of a new strategic investor who hopes to be able to integrate the plantation development into the factory that is sitting idle. And so hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I'm sure that there will be a public announcement on that. And Commenda should be back in terms of its long-term sustainability.
So when will Ghanaians know what government intends to do with the factory? What is the challenge? And what will it take to make this facility, which is a source of employment for the indigents and many others, a reality? For almost 3 years, the MPP government has failed to make the factory operational. But countries like Uganda produce over 365,000 metric tons of sugar and even export. So what are they doing right that we are doing wrong? Can we learn lessons from the Uganda example? Mr. President, you gave your word to the people of Commenda. The question is, when are you going to redeem your pledge to find an investor to get the factory running? Dear Nanado, let me borrow your own expression. The Commenda discussion is becoming a tired one. Please shame your detractors by giving us sugar. Give Ghanaians sugar.
Nanche, Obati Papa Freemanum, and